let's roll through what. Let's roll.
Yeah, it's the big dog hunt. Hello again, everybody. Joe Staszak, along with my man Steve Kallas. Time for another episode of Kallas Remarks with yours truly, and of course, the star of the show, Steven. How you doing today, my friend?
Oh, good, Joe. Great to be with you as always.
An absolutely wild week one in the NFL. It continued into Monday night's game in Vegas, and then last night in Washington. I don't know what to make of that game last night because so many mistakes. You had a quarterback who'd never won a game, another quarterback who turns the ball over as many times as he throws touchdowns. You had a drop pass, a called back touchdown, and then an offsides. What? On a game-winning what? Did he think he was going to jump the snap and get in there and block the kick? Come on, man. What'd you think of that game last night?
It's hard to believe. And, you know, Joe Judge, who is such an intense guy and such an old school guy, he's like, oh, I'm not going to blame this on one player or one play. You know, that's what they always say when it's one player or one play, who literally takes the game from victory to defeat. It's the old, if he doesn't go offsides, the game is over. He does go offsides and the game is over, but the other way. But a few other things, you know, we talked about Heineke and we think he's good. I think he might be better than Fitzpatrick. And Fitzpatrick, I thought, would have been better in the backup role. Although I have now huge questions on Washington's defense. They give up 20 points to the Chargers and 330 yards. Well, that's Herbert. They give up 29 points to Daniel Jones, who played well. You know, there might be something there. He's got some weapons. I don't know if you saw after one of the plays when they were on the sidelines, Kenny Galladay came up and started yelling at Jones. I don't know what it was about. Nobody talked about what it was about. I guess he wasn't getting the ball enough. But they got some weapons. Don't think Barkley's 100%, although that allegedly terrible offensive line I thought played pretty well. And again, you got to look at Washington's defense differently, I think, after the Chargers and more important, the Giants put up in the 20s on them. I think that's a problem, big picture, unless you tell me they just need a couple of games to get going. But Heineke, I have no idea why they called the pass play when Bradbury intercepted.
Can you believe that?
They had the lead. I thought they were going to run it 3 downs, you know, and punt it to put them way back, but they didn't. But somehow they got a chance to come back. And then Heineke threw that incredible pass in the end zone. Guy looked like, you know, Antonio Holmes in the Super Bowl in the corner of the end zone like that, what many people think is the greatest catch ever. That was an incredible catch. And then, you know, Hopkins is a good kicker, but he missed right by what, a foot or less?
Yeah, almost did the second time too.
And then he went inside by a foot or less. So he was able to move the ball 2 feet. And that's what showed that's the difference between victory and defeat in the NFL.
It was unbelievable. And again, you could point to certain things here and there, but Darius Slayton's got to catch that ball. Does he not? Does he not have to catch that ball? Daniel Jones put the ball right on his hands. I mean, that's all you can ask. You know, he can't catch the ball too. What do you want from Daniel Jones?
I think it would have been that was a real nice catch, yeah. But yes, should have been a catch. I don't believe if it hits you in the hands, you have to catch it. Right, I think that's overdone. But that, you know, the other problem is, and look, Jones threw it to a spot, but apparently Slayton was open by 13 yards. That's the largest pass into the end zone. This is ESPN. That's the largest separation, which is the word, by a wide receiver on a pass thrown into the end zone since 2016, which is kind of incredible. But yeah, there was so many plays in that game. And, you know, I don't know what to say. It's an incredible loss and an incredible win. To me, though, it rises for me that the Giants are better than I thought they were. But frankly, after 2 games now, I don't know if Washington is as good as I thought they would be. But offensively, I think they're going to be real good. Heineke makes plays. Don't forget, against Tampa Bay in the playoffs, if you had to rank the 4 opponents of Tampa Bay and rank the 4 quarterbacks, it's Heineke first and then 3 Hall of Famers, second, third, or fourth. You can put them in any order you want. Heineke was incredible. That's why I thought they'd start him. We talked about this, Joe. I thought he'd be the starter. And I love Fitzpatrick, as do you, but I think he's better. And obviously now he can't play after the first half. But obviously he's a lot. He can come in like he did for Tua last year, 2 or 3 times, and literally win the game when it looked like they couldn't win. I wish they would have given Heineke a shot because they now have a healthy Ryan Fitzpatrick. And it's going to be interesting depending on how Heineke plays. I don't know that they put Fitzpatrick back in when he comes back. He's 6-8 weeks out, and you'll know by then where Washington is going. But the biggest problem for Washington, to me, is not their offense. Believe it or not, it's their defense, which is supposed to be a top 3, top 5 defense. And so far, they haven't been. And that's against Daniel Jones, who, again, is a little better than I thought. They held Herbert to 20, but Daniel Jones, they held to 29. That's kind of scary to me, but we'll see what happens. That's what makes the NFL so interesting.
Yeah, I don't get some of these teams that, listen, you don't have a team if you don't have your quarterback position taken care of. We all agree it's the most important position in sports. I don't mind starting a young guy. If that's going to be your guy, let him play. He's already played some games. I didn't know he hadn't won, but he's proven the stage isn't too big for him against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year. So what are you doing with Ryan Fitzpatrick? Like, if Heineke, if you think he's your guy, I'm not saying he is, but I don't get that. It's like in Chicago. Now it's early, and I know Coach Nagy promised Andy Dalton he'd start, but Justin Fields looked pretty good to me, and I thought like Mac Jones looked pretty good to me, and I let him hit the ground running. You know, if they're the quarterback of the future, to me, it's only going to give them more experience and help them in this season and in the future. And I go back to, not that and I told you so guy, but remember when Ron Rivera and the Skins, and maybe this was a Daniel Jones move, had the number 2 pick overall and went for Chase Young, who's not the wrong pick necessarily, but I didn't like Dwayne Haskins. He lasted 4 weeks. Tua might not have been the right pick, and Burrow was probably gone, but I mean, Justin Gilbert was there. I mean, I don't know. Teams, I think, sometimes try to not make themselves look bad by not moving forward and getting rid of the mistake quick enough. I don't know what Washington's doing, but Washington hasn't had a good quarterback, a real good quarterback, aside from Mark Rippon in that 1 year, since Joe Theismann. They're as bad as Cleveland if you look at all of Cleveland's quarterbacks, back to Bernie Kosar. So I don't know. I mean, what I like from an Eagles standpoint is, well, I saw 2 of the NFC East teams play pretty well on Monday or Sunday and last Thursday. I thought the boys looked good, and I thought the Eagles looked good. What'd you think of the Birds? And we'll get to the Monday night game, but to me, they look pretty buttoned up. Like, I was really impressed with how much they looked like they knew what they were doing.
I give them total credit. Now, Atlanta seems to be terrible, but they still have Matty Ice.
Yeah.
They still have good offense, and even that first drive down where the Eagles, held them to a field goal, I thought that was a big deal early in the game, kind of set the tone. And look, we said Jalen Hurts was a question mark. He showed flashes of real good last year, and he showed flashes of not so real good last year. They decided to go all in on him. And after this first game, now again, it's against Atlanta. They might have a good offense, which credit the Philly defense, 6 points, but they don't have a good defense. So we'll have to see as the Eagles go forward. They got a tough game this week against the 49ers. You'll learn something a lot more about the Eagles now, but I think right now you'd almost have to go Dallas, Eagles, Washington, Giants. They all have big tests. Obviously, Washington and the Giants have already had their second test. And my takeaway from that is the Giants are better. And I don't know what it was with Galladay. I don't know, but they have to fix that. But Jones played pretty well, and he's incredible running. He did it last year, and they still, every time he faked, he had an open field.
Yeah.
Every time. Washington just couldn't put a guy on the edge who wouldn't follow the runner. Every time that guy on the right who came in just kept going. So the Giants are better. If Washington's defense isn't the top defense, I don't think they're good, although I do think their offense is going to be real good with Heineke. I think he has a chance based on last year. Maybe people thought Tampa Bay was a fluke, but you don't drop a guy in the middle of a playoff game against the eventual Super Bowl winners and he plays really well, if not great. That's not an accident. And I think we saw that yesterday. And I think he's going to be real good the next 6, 7 weeks. They have a tough schedule. So we'll have to see. It all depends on how he plays when Fitzpatrick comes back. They're not going to say it was Fitzy's job and you can have it. Much as I like Fitzpatrick, he's kind of a lifetime journeyman who's had incredible moments. But again, we didn't think he was a 17-game quarterback, much like we don't think our favorite Nick Foles is.
Right.
There are certain guys, Joe, and don't forget, you got to go that extra game this year. That's going to be even tougher. You know how everybody's hurt at the end of the year. Now they're going to be hurt for an extra week at the end of the year.
No, I totally agree. And looking back into week one, some surprises. I mean, Green Bay looked as bad as I've ever seen them play, and they've been to like 2 NFC title games. Now, and I hear guys and pundits, and, I like Colin Kaepernick. Don't always agree with him, but I like him. And I know he kind of jumps on Aaron Rodgers a lot. He thinks he's a great quarterback, but he talked about the brooding, and he compared it to Russell Wilson. If you remember, right after the season ended, Russell Wilson wasn't happy, and there were trade talks, blah, blah, blah. Once they got the situation straightened out, you didn't hear boo from him. Aaron Rodgers still, even last week, was talking about the offseason and blah, blah, blah. And he goes out and lays the biggest egg I've ever seen. Conversely, Jameis Winston, who I'm not a big fan of, goes lights out. I mean, that's why I love the NFL. Unless you're on the wrong side of that bet, I just love because it's a week-to-week proposition. But what do you think of that? Do you think it has anything to do with Aaron Rodgers and his discontent there?
It's almost inexplicable to me, but it has to have something to do with it. And the reason I'm scared is because afterwards, in a couple of press conferences, Aaron Rodgers essentially said, we won a lot of games here. We know what we're doing. But I'm worried because he didn't spell relax.
Relax, right?
And the last time he did that, they were off the charts after that. So I'm a little worried. I wish he would have done the instant replay. I'd feel better about them. But they were as bad as you could be. And even though everyone's singing the praises of Jameis Winston, as they should, keep in mind until their last touchdown drive in the fourth quarter where he threw that 55-yard bomb, he had 4 TD passes and 95 yards passing. So that's got to be one of the weirdest, five touchdowns in under 150 yards. That's got to be one of the weirdest stat lines in NFL history for a quarterback. But give them credit because they killed the Packers. And don't forget, it wasn't even at home.
It wasn't home.
Played in Jacksonville because of the hurricane. Or the remnants for the, after the hurricane. So once again, New Orleans goes way up. I don't say the Packers go way down, but they certainly go down because if you thought, I still think it's the Rams, but if you thought the Packers were the Bucs' biggest challengers, I think right now you put the Rams and the Saints, week 1, week 2, whatever, you put the Rams and the Saints in front of the Packers right now. But I'll say it again. I was looking for Aaron Rodgers to go. Remember last time? RELAX. But he didn't do that, Joe.
No, he did not. And then it takes us to Monday night's game. And you mentioned Darius Slayton, ESPN did something about how open he was. Well, did they miss Zay Jones on the winning touchdown in overtime? I didn't see a defender in the screen when Derek Carr threw that ball up to him. What a crazy game that was. The gamut of emotions, they're about to go in, they throw an interception, and it was crazy. I thought Derek Carr kind of came into his own on Monday night.
Well, I will say this, it must have been 4 or 5 times when they went no safety in the middle, they brought, me, I'm always screaming, bring 8, bring 9.
Yeah.
I think they did a few times in that game, but every time they had no safety in the middle, I'll say it again, it was 4 or 5 times. Derek Carr completed the pass. And I don't know if the corner thought he was getting help because all you had to do was look to your right and there was nobody there. I mean, you put 8, 9 guys on the line of scrimmage, you're bringing 7 or 8. I mean, again, I usually say it jokingly to my son, bring 8, bring 9. But I think a few times, I thought one time they did bring 9. And Carr completed, I think he was 4 for 4 or 5 for 5 on that. And yeah, that's why he was wide open because the corner thought he was getting safety help. And there literally was no safety there. It's not like they even played single safety. They played no safety, and they tried to get there. And it seems to me, in general, the quarterbacks are getting better as a group in the NFL of getting the ball away as quickly as possible. I mean, I thought Carr just kind of threw it up there, but there was nobody else there but his guy. So give him all the credit in the world. The Ravens decimated with injuries. You know the list. No Marcus Peters. They really miss on the defense, but no running back. I think they just, I think I saw yesterday, they just put Devonta Freeman on the team. They had just signed him off the street, and they signed Latavius Murray off the street, and he played. And they have Le'Veon Bell, but I guess he's not ready. I don't know if Le'Veon Bell is Le'Veon Bell anymore. The answer to that,
third string right now.
yeah, I think the answer is probably no. They got a lot of good name backs, but then they started the rookie as they had to, who had one good 35-yard TD run. But we'll have to see, because these guys, they have big names. I don't know if they're still really good players. And you know how it goes for running backs a lot of times.
Yeah, right off the cliff.
Although I kind of like Murray a little. I thought he was at least a good back now, and I thought he'd be okay. But, the Ravens, they still have Lamar Jackson, but that wasn't enough. And if it wasn't enough against the Raiders, I think they're in trouble against the Chiefs.
Well, you mentioned the Chiefs. Nice segue. They were down 9 points with 10 minutes left to Cleveland and getting whooped pretty much. Patrick Mahomes comes in after the Browns score to go up 9. One play, 75 yards. All right. One play, 75 yards. Touchdown. They're back in the game. They end up going up. And here's what I want to ask you about quarterback play here in the fourth quarter, because there's a lot to it. Tom Brady's 49th fourth quarter comeback the other night. This is why I put Derek Carr at a top 15 quarterback. I've always liked him more than maybe others, and you can make some arguments, but I think he's somewhere like 12 to 15. He had 37 seconds left to go a long way the other night, Derek Carr did, to kick a field goal. Got it done, won in overtime. Baker Mayfield had 2 possessions at the end of the game to try to put up, they were down 4, 3 plays and a punt, and then an interception. I always thought Baker's pretty confident, clutch, but do we still need to see him, continue to progress and make big plays? Because I always say the quarterbacks make their bones in overtime in the fourth quarter.
And you're totally right, especially when they're down and behind and they have to go fill in the blank. Carr threw a touchdown. Brady got him a field goal. And to me, for the Bucs, that Dak played incredibly well. I thought Dallas's defense played pretty well to hold them, although, Godwin fumbles at the 2, otherwise they got 38 points. It's hard to say that the Dallas defense played well, but if you compare them to last year's Dallas defense, they're certainly better. The problem for the Cowboys, they lost to Marcus Lawrence. But getting back to your point and your question, 100%, that's how you define quarterbacks in today's world. What can they do? And Baker Mayfield seems to be that guy who's not quite there yet. Everyone, including me, is giving Browns they have a chance to get to the Super Bowl this year. And last year I picked them to be in the AFC Championship game, not to get to the Super Bowl. But I think he still has that next hill to climb. And we always talk about the hills in the playoffs. Make the playoffs, get a win, get to a championship game, get to a Super Bowl.
Correct.
It's not quite the NBA, but I think that's kind of true also. You also have guys who just come in and get to the Super Bowl, and God bless them. Right. But I think he's not quite there yet. And, Mahomes, since he started second year in the league after, backing up Alex Smith, who he gives a lot of credit to, by the way, I think he just came on the scene, and he's the guy who can score in one play. He can score anytime he drops back, no matter where he is. And that's why he's probably the best quarterback in the NFL now. Brady's the greatest ever, and he can do it again this year. I have, a repeat of the Super Bowl because of the quarterbacks. And Brady has as many or more weapons as Mahomes. It's just incredible how many weapons he has. They talk about last week, Evans only had 3 catches for 24 yards. I think you got to keep these guys happy, and they have so many guys. And don't forget, if AB is AB, he might be the best receiver in the league, 5 catches for 121 yards.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of instant offense and finishing at the end, it's Brady and Mahomes, and we can talk about whoever afterwards, Russell Wilson, Derek Carr over the years. I don't think Baker's in that class yet, and this is the year for him to get into that class. But you're right. He didn't do it against the Chiefs. And the Chiefs defense, the Chiefs' weakness is not their O-line. It's going to be their defense this year. You can still run on them. Chris Jones, who we loved him in that Super Bowl a few years ago, you'll remember, got his money and he's still playing. But they're not as deep defensively or as good defensively. And that would be why, at least now, I picked the Bucs to beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, as great as Mahomes is. But he's going to have more time next year if that's what the final is. And I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but no, I don't think Baker's quite there yet. But he's a very good NFL quarterback. Is he an elite one? He's going to have to do what you said he didn't do the other day. And when, Mahomes kicks you in the butt, you got to be able to come back and kick him in the butt as well. And, that's a difficult thing to do. Does he have the talent to do it? Yes, but he hasn't done it yet.
He hasn't done it yet, but certainly he will, I think. He's on that trajectory, though, I should say. All right, let's do our picks. Not bad opening week. I'm not exactly sure how you did. I'll go first. I went 2-1. Yes, I'm embarrassed. I took the Falcons. Given 3.5. Yeah, I know. So I lost that one. I had the Raiders on Monday night. They were down 14-0. I'm glad I pulled out a win there. And then I had the Carolina Panthers over the Jets with Sam Darnold and Christian McCaffrey and whatnot. It's the Jets. So sometimes I bet with hot teams. Sometimes I bet against bad teams. Went 2-1. This week, I like the Bengals plus the points. I thought that win in Minnesota was huge last week. Joe Burrow kind of coming into his own, especially coming off that catastrophic knee injury. So I like him getting the points. Let me see if that line has moved at all. That line, no. Andy Dalton starts for the Bears. I don't know what Matt Nagy's thinking. He played okay. But I like dogs. Dogs, by the way, and you gave me this stat, we're like 12-4. That's ridiculous. Like people don't really realize they cover about as much as favorites do. People just the psychological thing, taking the favorites. And they won the game outright. And they were like 9-7 outright. It was amazing. I'll take the Bengals. I never thought I'd say this before this season. I'm taking the Texans against the Browns. 13 points. It's almost 2 touchdowns. Browns are stung a little bit. Tyrod, the Texans might stink, and the Jaguars might stink even worse. They kind of killed the Jags. Anytime you kill somebody, I don't know if you can be that bad. Tyrod Taylor, not a huge fan, never a fan of Virginia Tech. I just like the points, too many points there. And, of course, the Patriots over the Jets. Patriots, Bill Belichick against a rookie quarterback is like, 103-1. So I'm going to go there minus the 6 points. How about you, bro?
2-1. I was embarrassed in retrospect to take the Packers.
That's right. I forgot about that.
I wasn't RELAXing before, during, or after that game. Again, kind of inexplicable. I know they don't have Bakhtiari, but they haven't really had him most of last year as well. And he's the best left tackle in football, blah, 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 blah. But Aaron Rodgers wasn't Aaron Rodgers. I think that whole, what you said over the year, LaFleur had a terrible game, and you watch him talk afterwards, and you're like, stop talking, go back to work. But, I had the Panthers -4 over the Jets. I had the Broncos -3 over the Giants. So 2-1 with 2 favorites is a pretty good.
That's good. Consider that's very good.
2 of the 4 games.
Very good.
This week I'm going Denver -5.5 over the Jags. I think, as I told you before the season started, I watched Urban Meyer in the preseason, and he looked like, why am I here? He looked not overmatched, just he had that look on his face like when he lost in college, which was rare. He's going to lose a lot this year. And Lawrence was 3 TDs, 3 picks. But I really like what Denver did. And, maybe I overrate Teddy Bridgewater. I think he's a very good quarterback, on the verge of being an excellent quarterback. If he hadn't gotten that devastating injury a few years ago, I think he'd be a top 10 quarterback right now. And I think this is his year to prove it. I also like the Pats -6 over the Jets. It's what you said. It's Belichick against a rookie quarterback. And frankly, a rookie coach. I think he's going to be fine, but he's a rookie coach against Belichick, and it's the Jets and the Patriots. The Jets have played the Patriots tough on occasion, but and don't forget they lost Becton, who was viewed to be one of the best left tackles in the league. He's out 4 to 6 weeks. That's a big problem. And I thought Mac Jones played really well. Look, is he Tom Brady? Is he Tom Brady? Of course not, but he did put him in a position to win. And if they take 3 knees instead of running the ball, I know you always want to get close. I always say that. like in the Atlanta Super Bowl, if they took 3 knees, Brian kicks a 40-yard field goal, they're up 10, the game's over. But then they took a penalty and a sack. Forget that game. That's still the greatest comeback in the history of the world because it was in the Super Bowl. But I think the Jets are in trouble. I think Mac Jones is going to have a field day. They're not good in the defensive secondary to begin with. They lose their left tackle on offense. I think it might be a long day, and I think Mac Jones is real. And I don't think he'd be playing if Belichick didn't think he was real. And I think Nick Saban said this guy could be the one because they're looking for 10 years or 15 years. And will Belichick be coaching then? Well, remember he said he didn't want to be Marv Levy? Well, he's Marv Levy. And finally, I don't know where you are in this game. I didn't talk to you about it. But I'm going to take Arizona at home, -4.5 over the Vikings. I think the bloom is off the rose for Zimmer. I liked him for a lot of years. We like Cousins. He's our guy. They have Dalvin Cook. We always talk about him. But Arizona, to me, I think is much improved this year. They're going to have to double Chandler Jones. And I think he's one guy Belichick let go, not a year too soon, but like 3 or 4 years too soon, because Chandler Jones, 5 sacks last week. And they're going to have to deal with him, which will open it up for other guys. So I'm going Denver -5.5 over the Jags, Pat -6 over the Jets, Arizona -4.5 at home against the Vikings.
I like that. I like what Arizona's done against Tyler Murray. Unbelievable. Kyler Murray, I'm sorry.
Kyler Murray, yeah.
Good stuff. Going to be interesting. We're off to a good start. Let's before we wrap, it's a little baseball. Some of the wild card races heating up a little bit. Your thoughts?
Yeah, a couple of things before the wild cards. I just want to notice, Cleveland got no hit last week by the Brewers. It's the 9th no-hitter of the season. They've already broken the all-time record, which went back to 1884. I'll throw in also, because I think this is a disgrace, the Rays recently threw a combined 7-inning no-hitter, doesn't count. Bumgarner threw a 7-inning no-hitter, doesn't count. It might be the only sport in the history of the world, of any sport, in any time, anywhere, who would change the length of the game from 9 innings to 7 innings because of doubleheaders, and then say if you throw a no-hitter for 7, for 7 innings, it's a complete game, it's a shutout, but it's not a no-hitter. So really, there's been 11 no-hitters this year. How you could do that is beyond me. I understand the rule changed many years ago, but that was before baseball changed the rules to make doubleheader games 7 innings. It's beyond stupid. So Cleveland has been no-hit 3 times, first team in the history of the world. Again, we live in that home run, walk, strikeout world. You got 2 guys who struck out 10 in a row to tie Seaver this year, including your guy, Aaron Nola. Right. To me, I'm sorry, that's a joke. I'm sorry, it's a joke. Scherzer went over 3,000 strikeouts. He's a superstar Hall of Famer. And I do want to mention Salvador Perez, who hit his 45th home run as a catcher this past week. And he's tied Johnny Bench for the all-time home run record by a catcher who's catching. So if you hit it as a DH, it doesn't count. Perez is an Iron Man. He's Yadier Molina of the American League, in my opinion. But he's going to break Johnny Bench's record of 45 set back in 1970. Again, I think that's partly home run, strikeouts, walks. Doesn't matter if you strike out 180 times a year now. Look at Gallo on the Yankees. Hit one last year. He's got 35 strikeouts. I think he's hitting 198. 35 homers. I think he's hitting 198 with a ton of strikeouts and 100 walks. That's like the where we are now. And finally, I just saw this morning. Ohtani is not going to pitch the rest of the year. He had some shoulder soreness the other day. They're just shutting him down. So here's the question, Joe. Can you be 9-2 with a 3.36 ERA and win the Cy Young? Everybody says he's winning the MVP. I understand he's done what nobody has done, including Babe Ruth. He's got like 44, 45 homers to lead the majors, 9-2. I don't know if he's the MVP. I don't know if he's the Cy Young winner. I think he's minus 5,000 to win the Cy Young. You got to bet 5,000 to win 100. I would not do that. He's the MOP. He's the most outstanding player, but is he the MVP? I don't know. So we'll just have to see. And here are your wild card standings. The Blue Jays and Red Sox are tied. The Yankees had another unbelievable collapse at Baltimore. against Baltimore, where Clay Holmes, who's been really well, bottom of the ninth, 2 outs, 2 strikes on the batter, man on third, throws a wild pitch. Now it had started to rain, maybe the ball slipped out, and then the Yankees lose it in 10. It's the 7th game that the Yankees have had the lead in the 9th inning or later and lost 7 games. And they're now a half game out of the wild card. And the problem for the Yankees, to me, is the Red Sox have the easiest schedule left in baseball. And the Blue Jays, who have those big bats, the Blue Jays have the 5th easiest in the American League. That's a problem. So it's Blue Jays, Red Sox tied, Yankees half game behind, the A's 3 games behind, kind of dropping out because they have to, jump 2 teams. And the Mariners 4 games behind, going to be hard now down the stretch. In the NL, the battle is only for the 2nd wild card. I think I saw the Dodgers are 17 and a half games up in the wild card, but still like 2 or 2.5 behind the Giants. But for the 2nd wild card, the Cardinals are 76 and 69 after sweeping the Mets and pretty much knocking them out. Padres a half game behind the Cardinals. The Reds 1 game behind the Cardinals, and the Phillies, your Phillies, with MVP candidate, right? Harper, he's got to be an MVP.
Yeah.
He hit his, they were down. Did you see the other day? They were down 7-0. They won 12-8. Harper hit his 33rd homer. He's in the mix for MVP, but the Phillies are still 2.5 games behind. And again, they're 3 in the loss column, and they have to jump 3 teams to get it. It's just very hard to jump teams. Final thing I want to say, we should mention, this past Wednesday was Roberto Clemente Day. One of the greatest players ever, in my opinion. You know what I think of him. I put up that article every year, December 31st. And a great humanitarian died in the plane crash, December 31, 72, trying to help Nicaraguans. He's a Puerto Rican and Hispanic legend, trying to help Nicaraguans after an earthquake, died in the plane crash. They never found the plane. They never found the body. But I will say one thing that struck me as interesting. I don't think it was mandatory for everybody to wear 21. I think they could wear their own number and put a 21 patch on. I'm not cool with that. I think Jackie Robinson Day, everybody wears 42.
Everyone wears 42.
And so I saw a couple of Yankees, I thought, who had their numbers on. I'll have to go back and research that because I didn't hear much talked about that. But I think you had the option of wearing a 21 patch and wearing a regular number, which again, it gets confusing for one day if everybody wears 42 or if everybody wears 21, but it's one day.
One day.
So Clemente, one of the greatest players ever, in my opinion, one of the greatest 5-tool player, one of the greatest humanitarians ever, and he should be remembered, in my opinion, just like Jackie Robinson is remembered. Although what Jackie Robinson did was more consequential on the overall thing, on the overall world landscape, baseball, civil rights movement before the civil rights movement. I think Clemente deserves his due, and he gets it now every September 15th.
He certainly gets it from you, bro. Way to keep his memory alive. It's Steve Kallas. I'm Joe Staszak. Appreciate everyone watching. You can check out this podcast every week on Steve's Facebook forum page, Speaking of Sports with Steve Kallas. You can also have conversations with him. Check out his videos on westchestercountypost.com. Also on YouTube. You can find this on my Facebook page. And again, we're on YouTube every Friday afternoon, sometimes Saturday afternoon, depending on what we tape. We usually shoot tape on Friday mornings. You can follow me on Twitter at Joe Staszak 975. Steve, good stuff, man. I'll be texting you this weekend, and enjoy the games.
Always a pleasure, Joe.
You too, buddy. Thanks, folks. Appreciate you watching. God bless. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you soon.